Hello everybody and welcome back to Let's Play Suzerain. So in the last part we made our way down to Norbel and held some discussions with various ministers and the like about plans for healthcare and education in the country. I believe today is going to be, meeting with Alfonso on Gazprom, or Gazom. Let's see, we got a report here. This is going to be pretty important. CPS and LUS strike against Gazom. In Norbel, the Communist Party of Swordland and Labor Union of Swordland have organized a strike against Gazom. Prominent figures Katrina Horton of LUS and Dennis Staller of CPS have confirmed their participation. The impact of the strike on Gazom's operations and the wider political climate in Norbel remains to be seen. And then another one talking about a labor strike. It's the exact same strike, basically. Blue-collar workers at Gazom and Norbel have initiated a labor strike. This industrial action follows disagreement over wages, working conditions, and workers' rights. The strike has resulted in a temporary disruption to Gazom's operations. The duration of the strike and potential impact on Norbel's local economy are currently uncertain. Negotiations between Gazom management and the striking workers are reportedly ongoing. And that's where we come in. After a series of intense meetings with Ciara and Pascal, I decided to take some much-needed rest to recharge. Lucien and Peter were laboring tirelessly in the capital, uniting democratically leaning reformers for the crucial task of drafting a new constitution. Meanwhile, Gus Manger had invited me to visit the Gazom headquarters in Norbel. It was situated in Ornobel, a neighborhood on the city's outskirts. Next to it was the Deminoy Gas Reserve, a prominent natural gas source consisting of 4 large fields. As our motorcade made its way through the Ornobel district, I noted the neighborhood's state of disrepair. The roads were bumpy and marked by potholes, while the buildings surrounded us appeared run down and dilapidated. The community had apparently endured a prolonged period of neglect. We came to a halt at the entrance gates of the facility. A sizable mural depicting the Gazom logo had been painted on a nearby wall. Adjacent to the mural, a group of individuals wearing blue work vests had assembled, holding what looked like protest signs. Sergei skillfully parked the car, bringing our journey to a smooth and elegant conclusion. Gus greeted us warmly as we stepped out of the vehicle. "Good day, President Rain. Welcome to Gazom's Norbel operations. I trust Ministers Walda and Benewal didn't overwhelm you with their demands." Let's see. I would be surprised if there are no demands or expectations here today. No demands from me, President Rain. I'm all about making deals and finding common ground. If there's one thing Gus Manger stands for, it's win-win solutions. Mr. President, I've been brainstorming a little something. The Gruny Rural Investment Plan. I reckon it's got the potential to breathe new life into our rural communities out in Gruny. Where is Gruny? I don't know. Let's see. I think that's way out here somewhere. Oh, right here. It's the region down here. Okay. Let's return to the conversation. We could consider a few things. For starters, we could give the farming business a boost with some subsidies, or we could steer towards modernizing existing farms with machinery and tech. Or here's another thought. We could pour resources in developing crop breeds tailor-made for Gruny conditions. If it works out, we could roll this out across Swordland. He kept talking as he guided me into the Gazom building. "Mr. President, I get the appeal of the green bill that's been making the rounds in the assembly. But I'm telling you, if we put the brakes on that and funnel those funds into the Gruny plan instead, we could make some real strides without spooking any potential investors." It's a tough call, Gus. I need to weigh the environmental implications and the economic benefits. That's all I'm asking for, Mr. President. Just give this plan a fair shake. Our talk was interrupted by a noise coming from outside the building. We looked out the nearest window. A sleek helicopter was cutting through the sky, sunlight glinting off its polished surface as it descended towards us. On it was our next appointment, Ewald Afonso. Let's see. An extravagant show of wealth, isn't it? Hardly seems necessary. It's Afonso's style, Mr. President. He's always enjoyed his toys. Before we meet him, I wanted to bring up one more piece of assembly business. This workers' rights bill. Look, I'm all for giving hard-working folks what they desire, or what they deserve. But isn't it a bit hasty to push this while we're still stuck in a recession? The way I see it, short-term wins might end up costing us big time in the long run. Let's see. Gus, I get what you're saying, but isn't it high time we put people before profits? I see where you're coming from, Mr. President, but a prosperous economy helps everyone, the workers included. If we're all sinking, nobody's winning. Please come this way. Ewald and I have some exciting news to share with you. I have faith that you won't leave us hanging. The discussions were lively during the highway contract award. I'm willing to hear new offers from you. You still have to prove that you make returns on your deals. Our investment in Armadine had better make a return. I never claim to see the future, President Rain. I merely find good opportunities and seize them. Sometimes I do it for myself. Other times I chase luck with others. You played it safe with 2,000 shares, but you still stand to make some gains. Me? I got 4,000 shares. Thanks to a low-risk loan I leveraged on an old logistics business of mine. As soon as the IPO kicks in on the Venture City Stock Exchange, we'll both be rolling in Ren. A true capitalist knows how and when to play. Well said. The higher you rise, the less you can fall. Why not pick good people up along the way? Not all of the market economy believes are capitalist pigs. Look at me and how many jobs I've brought to this country. Attract money, invest in the right solutions, increase wealth and living standards, it all trickles down. Does it though? We can discuss this later, Mr. Rain. We shouldn't keep our former president waiting. He pushed open a door. We walked down yet another hallway, seemingly in the direction we just come from. Like a maze, isn't it? This Quinali architecture for you. Or that's Quinali architecture for you. The hallways were lined with doors. Glass panels in them revealed workers in suits and ties, many of foreign origin, busy in their pristine offices. A stark contrast to the blue-collar workers outside working with machinery, transportation, and maintenance. Let's see. Why are there so many workers from abroad? The best talent in Sordish was snatched by the SSC in the 1930s. Most other corporations couldn't contend, so they had to look elsewhere. Ah, here's the elevator. Ewald ought to be up there already. There's a separate entrance by the helipad. We stepped into the elevator, Gus punched a code, and we began our ascent. Just remember, Afonso's our friend. We've got the foundation for a great deal. The doors opened. Here we are. Ewald, my friend. Ewald Afonso stood up from his chair. He had on a perfectly tailored suit that he wore as casually as pajamas. Gus, you old devil. It takes one to know one. As promised, I brought our guest of honor. President Rain, I hope you enjoyed seeing our facilities here. Let's see. The facilities appear to be in much better shape than the city around them. You should have seen Narbel before Gassom came here. The jobs it created have had a lasting positive effect. It's true, things here could be a lot worse. Please, have a seat. Let's talk. We sat down, some snacks and drinks were served, multiple Gassom yearly financial reports were scattered on the table between us. It's been a while, Mr. Rain. Let me catch up on my activities since I left office. I ventured to Xena, immersing myself in its vibrant culture, then traversed the captivating landscape of the Anrakan Peninsula, and finally reunited with old acquaintances in Kiao. I probably mispronounced that. Along the way, I had the privilege of encountering remarkable individuals who have made significant contributions to their respective fields. My experiences prompted deep reflection on the essence of life. I came out of it all with two words resonating in my head: reputation and legacy. These two pillars embody the lasting impact we leave behind and the way we are remembered by others. With a cup of coffee in hand, he strolled over to the window, his gaze drawn to the expansive gas fields stretching before him, towering mountains providing a majestic backdrop. Let's see. Our image and our perception are a key force that shape our lives, but they can also be burdensome. He gazed out for a moment longer as he contemplated what I'd said, then turned back to us. I have been thinking about my own legacy and reputation, and I refuse to be remembered as a failed reformer. I put so many years of my life into this corporation, and then I left it all behind and devoted myself to serving the people of Swordland. And serve you did. Swordland would be much worse off without you. Let's see. I cannot help but empathize with individuals who invest their utmost dedication and passion into their work. That much is appreciated. I am well aware of the challenges you yourself have faced. I commend you for navigating those obstacles without causing harm to others, but I'm concerned about the future of what I have built up. The latest figures show that Gassom will have to either decrease staff and operations by 40% in 1 year or take on a crushing amount of debt. This is why we have decided to reach out to foreign investors. Let's see. I have concerns about relying too heavily on foreign investors. It's important to prioritize local ownership and maintain sovereignty over our national resources. I understand your concerns, but the future of Gassom is on the line. Rest assured, we will take measures to protect our interests and ensure responsible engagement. I appreciate you coming through, Gus. Getting Rizia interested in another investment is a major feat. We've got an amazing opportunity here. The demand for gas is steadily increasing from both international partners and the Sordish state. All we have to do is ensure a consistent supply. The trouble is that right now some of our fields are operating at only half of their capacity due to resource limitations. But we have significant potential for expansion, including 2 new fields that haven't even been tapped. With the right amount of investment, we can expand resource extraction, effectively fulfill rising demand, and ensure long-term stability and profitability. There is the aforementioned interest from Rizia, but the investment could also come from Swordland itself. Let's see. If your analysis is correct, any investment would also make returns and secure further gas. Indeed, this deal has the potential to bolster both Gassom and Swordland. Together, we can create a historic opportunity. Why settle for being in the top 10 energy exporters when we have the potential to compete with Arcasia and United Cantana? Mr. Alfonso has neglected to mention that this is not an either-or proposition. Swordland can invest alongside Rizia. Let's see. We've got the budget for it, and such a cooperation could be beneficial. Very beneficial. I will be at the helm to ensure these funds bring sustainable growth and good returns. Ewald won't be alone. We have a talented financial team. The sound of sirens briefly distracted us through the window. We saw police cars driving down the street adjacent to the Gassom zone. We redirected our attention to the meeting. Ewald looked at me. Mr. Rain, the foundation for a robust partnership is right here. It's high time we shift our focus towards sealing this deal. If we raise a minority investment, it would allow us to invest in further resource excavations in the gas fields and turn the company back to significant profitability. By significant, I mean that our projections show that Gasom would be able to cover 80% of Sorlin's gas needs in 3 years, and we would achieve profits 4 times the value of our investment. Let's see. Got a point. Your projections sound impressive, however, we need to consider the international market as well. How do we plan to compete against nations like Anaraka, Arcasia, United Cantana? You've got a strong strategy in place. Our competitive edge lies in the quality and efficiency of our production. With this investment, we can further enhance our technologies and stay ahead of the competition. Ewald and his team have been doing a hell of a job giving them the right backing, and I reckon Gasom could give the big boys a run for their money. We just need to have a little faith. Mr. President, your administration's commitment to a market economy aligns with our vision for a competitive Gasom. With the government investment, we can further liberalize the energy market, enhancing our technologies and compete globally. Gotta agree with this one. I see the potential for Gasom to drive Sorlin's energy independence, so we need to make sure this is a sustainable solution. Because if we just get all of the gas and oil out as quickly as we possibly can and just use it all ASAP, what are we gonna do once we're all out of it? Not gonna do us a whole hell of a lot of good. You bring up a valid point. We're dedicated to responsible resource extraction and have allocated a portion of the proposed investment for environmental mitigation measures. I mean, I wasn't necessarily just talking about environmental mitigation necessarily, but I mean, that is, I guess, also kind of important. I was just generally talking about what happens when we use it all up and we don't have any of our own extraction still available. Sustainability is a key part of our strategy. Couldn't disagree more, Mr. President. We've got to keep the big picture in mind, and that includes our environment. I trust Ewald and his team to handle this responsibly. If the Sordish government chooses to invest, it would gain a voice in the broader company decisions, even as a minority stakeholder. The government could either liquidate its shares at a future date or continue to reap the long-term profits. A beneficial arrangement for all parties. Ewald walked back over to the window. He stood there, silhouetted against the vast expanse of the gas fields. After a moment, he turned back to face us. His gaze was steady, the expectation clear in his eyes. The time had come to make a decision. Well, Mr. President, will Gasom and Sorlin make history or not? Okay, now I'm kind of curious about for this one. Let's see. Well, that's certainly interesting. Doesn't look like there's a... Very interesting. Does not seem to have any listing for this one, so I'm not quite sure what the impacts are necessarily of either of these investments. However, I am inclined to say, because we have the funds, we're going to invest alone. Sorlin will provide the majority of funds, and Gus would tell Rizia to back off. Your decision shows a commitment to Sorlin's energy independence. We won't let you down. It's a bold move, Mr. President, but I reckon it's the right one. Gasom's success will be Sorlin's success. The worried workers will have no fears about job security thanks to this state intervention. Before we dive into these celebrations, I've allocated time during this meeting for President Rain to discuss any concerns regarding Gassom's treatment of its workers and its effects on Narbel. The labor union, along with the Communist Party of Sorland, has rallied substantial support from Gassom workers in Narbel, advocating for improved local conditions. Alfonso nodded and looked at me. Let's see. Our duty is to listen and take action. That's the mandate granted to us by the public. While sometimes people may not always recognize what's in their best interests. Do you have a proposal in mind, Mr. President? That feels like letting them off. This is certainly helpful. This one potentially saves us needing to invest in healthcare and education in this region in particular, but just in general, potentially across the country to some extent as well, because presumably Gassom is not solely located in Narbel. This is just where their headquarters is. The workers of Gassom need better housing, access to healthcare, and opportunities for education. As the leading industry there, Gassom can't ignore its responsibility. A good point. I see the potential for Gassom to play a larger role in supporting our workers in the community. I will personally oversee initiatives to provide better private housing, health, and education support for our blue-collar workers. I'd say let them know that we're going to be watching. These are significant steps. I look forward to seeing these changes implemented swiftly. Ewald, your personal commitment to these initiatives speaks volumes. This could be a turning point for Gassom and for Narbel. Well, Mr. President, we're committed to... Suddenly the meeting was interrupted. The quiet murmur of a conversation from outside the room grew louder, followed by the sound of hurried footsteps. A member of the private security team entered the room, his face taut with urgency. He approached Alfonso and leaned in to whisper something in his ear. Ewald nodded solemnly, his gaze meeting mine with a serious intensity. Gentlemen, it seems we have an unexpected situation outside. Some protesters from the labor union have blocked the main vehicular exits. Katrina Horton and Dennis Stoller have seemed to be leading the group. It would be difficult to leave the way we came without causing trouble. Well, that's a pickle. What's our move, Ewald? I have a helicopter ready. We can leave undetected and avoid the chaos and potential danger. I think we should face the crowd head on. That is your prerogative, Mr. President. Following the violent events of late, I heavily recommend against facing any crowd. Mr. President, I advise you to leave via helicopter just in case. I can stay back and update the crowd on the discussions today. Sergei Walkner rushed in. Mr. President, I have discussed the situation with the Presidential Guard and the police security. They are advising us to not go out the way we came in. More police are on the way. You must make a decision, Mr. President. Everyone waited. The tense silence of the room stood in stark contrast to the buzz of the ever-growing crowd outside. Let's see. British Freedom Front is under new leadership. Who's the brother of the infamous former leader? That could be good or it could be bad. Probably bad, most likely, but hopefully not. What do we have here? Resounding vote for Gassom's future. Sorland government's large-scale investment in Gassom is a clarion call of confidence in our energy sector. This action underscores our government's commitment to strengthening domestic industries. In an act of resolute governance, our authorities have poured significant resources into Gassom. This move increases assurances within our national energy sector and displays Sorland's dedication to industry fortification. Gassom sees Sorland's government's robust investment. Okay. Pricey misstep. Radical. Doesn't like it though. Detractors argue that throwing money at systemic issues plaguing the sector is far from a viable solution. I mean, that's probably true. But let's see. Leave Gassom facility and Narbel. We are going to address the protesters and leave via car. As we stepped out of the towering front gate of the Gassom facility, I immediately became aware of how tense the situation was. Gus Manger stood to my right, his silhouette barely distinguishable from the monolithic edifice behind us. Oh really, Gus, you decided to follow me. That's somewhat shocking. Sergei stood to my left, his eyes scanning the crowd with the precision of a hawk. The Gassom security had drawn their weapons in anticipation, forming a bristling wall around the perimeter. My presidential guard, in stark contrast, stood tall and unflinching at the entrance, shielding us from the sea of angry workers surrounding us. The shouts of the crowd were deafening, the hostility palpable. Stoller and Horton stood at the forefront with fire in their eyes. With a deep breath, I prepared to address them. Gus extended a megaphone towards me. Let's see. My fellow swords, we are here today not as adversaries but as collaborators. Our purpose to invest in Gassom and to ensure it invests in you. Let's see. We are not blind to your struggles. We seek to acknowledge them, address them, and above all, improve them. Speeches and more speeches from President Rain, but what exactly was decided today? We need more than pretty words, we need substance. She's right, Mr. President, we need details. What's going to change for the workers? Now hold on a moment. President Rain is committed to bringing about real change. His actions and discussions demonstrate this clearly, even if it doesn't fit your narrative. Is that so, Manger? All we've seen are decisions that favor the likes of you and Ewald Alfonso, not the common workers. It's not about narratives, Mr. Manger. It's about ensuring a fair, dignified life for the working class, something your policies have consistently failed to do. Dennis, the focus here is not on narratives or images, but on real, tangible changes. It's a process, and we are on the right track. Words, words, and more words, President Rain. What the workers need are actions, not promises. Exactly, Dennis. The working class of Swordland is still waiting for these actions. And what about the recent campaign finance bill, Mr. President? It's a direct attack on democracy, effectively silencing smaller parties like ours. Your neglect of our nation's healthcare system will harm millions. Mr. President, we demand that you support the upcoming Workers' Rights Bill. The labor force of Swordland will be watching your next move closely. Furthermore, we want reform. Reduce the election threshold and change the Constitution to make a more democratic and fairer nation. Let's see. I understand the concerns and frustrations many of you have. Rest assured, we are here, we are listening, and we are committed to addressing these issues. Despite the sharp words exchanged, the crowd remained eerily calm. It seemed like they were waiting, their collective breath held in anticipation of something more. Suddenly, a reporter pushed through the crowd, brandishing a microphone towards me. The locals of Narbel have suffered under the impact of Gassom for years. What concrete steps is Gassom going to take for the benefit of the local community? This is basically three different ways of saying the same thing. As a result of our negotiations, or our efforts have borne fruit, or through hard negotiations. Otherwise, they are exactly the same. It's just slightly different phrasing at the start. It probably doesn't have any real impact. It just depends on how you want to have us phrase it. And, well, I feel like we might be the kind of person who says that our efforts have borne fruit. Gassom will now provide better housing, healthcare, and education for every worker. This is a vital step towards building a more resilient workforce. A change came over the crowd. The angry shouts were replaced with cries of disbelief, then joy. Eventually, all fell silent as they waited for Dennis and Katrina to respond. If these promises materialize, it could mean a significant improvement to the lives of our comrades at Gassom. This is a start, albeit late. Let's hope it's not mere lip service. Private housing, healthcare, and education? That's indeed a shift from the status quo, Mr. President. While I commend this commitment to improve the lives of our Gassom workers, we can only hope this is not just another political gambit. A group of figures emerged from the crowd, adorned in unmistakable scarlet attire. The Red Youth had arrived. I realized this was no longer a mere protest. It was a symbol of a broader, more potent struggle. The police began reorganizing their ranks, adopting defensive postures. Could you shed some light on the possible deal between the Sordish government and Gassom? What role does the Kingdom of Rizia play in this arrangement? Let's see. The government of Sorland has decided to solely invest in Gassom. We believe this will lead to a direct positive impact on the citizens of Sorland. A surprising but potentially promising decision, Mr. President. Let's hope your confidence isn't misplaced. Encouraging President Rain, as long as your government's drive to recoup your investment doesn't take precedence over Gassom's struggling labor force. Nearby, a Gassom security officer and a Presidential Guard member were conversing in hushed tones. I saw them glance over the crowd, now calmer but still restless. President Rain, while the crowd appears somewhat subdued, I would advise we exercise caution. It may be best to conclude your address and proceed to the vehicle. Let's see. Are you sure? Won't running away from this only make the protesters angrier? I'll remain here, Mr. President. The crowd seems calmer now, and I believe I can answer their queries and maintain the peace. You should go ahead. Mr. President, thank you for your willingness to address us. Let's continue these important conversations moving forward. You've shown your courage today. We'll see if your actions match your words. Until next time. We have shown courage together. Now we will hold you accountable to your promises. The troubles of the laborers are not over, and neither is the work of our union. We're going to shake their hands. I reached out my hand and Katrina shook it with a smile. Dennis followed suit. Almost immediately, the remaining tension in the crowd dissipated. A few workers nearby broke into scattered applause. The initially hesitant clapping grew louder, and jubilant cheers and whistles filled the air. I saw the Red Youth members standing at the edge of the crowd with their arms folded, a hint of approval in their eyes. As I readied myself to leave, I turned back to Katrina and Dennis a last time. Let's see. I feel like this is not exactly true. Dialogue has always been there, just a matter of listening. And I feel like this one's a little bit almost patronizing. My job is to listen and act. As for accountability, isn't that what all governments should be held to? You have my word. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, this one is kind of true. It's a marathon, not a sprint. We're not gonna just immediately get all the changes we want. Gotta kind of slowly walk some of them up. Unless you want to go revolution on it. That doesn't necessarily mean you'll get everything you wanted exactly how you wanted it. Yeah, the path to progress is challenging and fraught with disagreement, but we must not let this divide us. The reporter jumped in. Can you clarify the current status of your personal relation with Iwa? No more questions, please. Mr. President, if you could please proceed to the vehicle. Sergei opened the door and the door of the car, and I lowered myself into the seat. The door closed behind me with a thud, sealing off the external noise. The crowd began to disperse, the individuals breaking away to let our convoy through. The guards took their position nonetheless, forming a human barrier around the vehicle. The engine purred to life and we began to move. I'm glad we are safely on our way, Mr. President. Sergei, in this role, danger comes with the territory, but your concern is appreciated. No, kind of like a little excitement to keep us on our toes, wasn't it? That's one way to look at it, Mr. President. Keeps the job interesting, to say the least. The echoing voice of the protesters gradually subsided as we retreated from the scene and left Narbel behind. Okay, let's see. Gassam's blue-collar support, a win for traditional values, and a step that upholds the dignity of hard-working Sordish citizens. Gassam has committed to providing private housing, health, and education support for blue-collar workers. In the face of the economic challenges these workers face daily, this commitment sends a clear message. Hard work does not go unnoticed in our society. These workers, often overlooked, are the backbone of our nation. This move by Gassam will not only improve their standard of living, but also boost morale and productivity within the company. Hopefully true. In a show of attentive leadership, President Anton Rain's address at the gates of Gassam was marked by a clear understanding and acknowledgement of the workers' concerns. The president's speech, resonating with empathy and decisiveness, reinforced his commitment to improving the working conditions and lives of the people of Narbel. This display of a leader who listens serves to strengthen the bond between the presidential office and the people of Swordland. President Anton Rain's recent address at the Gassam Gates in Narbel has been met with an overwhelming positive response from the crowd. The president's articulate delivery and compelling arguments served to rekindle faith in the Sordish government. Shedding a ray of hope on the current challenges plaguing our nation, his inspiring speech seemed to resonate with the working class, leaving an atmosphere of optimism and unity in its wake. In a recent breakthrough, President Anton Rain secured a commitment from Gassam to provide housing, health, and education support to their hard-working blue-collar employees. This is an undeniable triumph for worker rights, and significantly, it has been catalyzed by the robust advocacy of the Labor Union of Swordland and the Communist Party of Swordland. In these challenging economic times, this assistance can considerably improve the quality of life for these workers and their families. We hope to see other major companies in Swordland follow suit in the near future. In a hard-fought victory for workers, Gassam has agreed to extend housing, health, and education support to their blue-collar workforce. This significant development, won primarily through the relentless struggle of the Labor Union of Swordland and the Communist Party of Swordland, marks a milestone in workers' rights. The role of President Anton Rain, while instrumental in the negotiation process, pales in comparison to the blood, sweat, and tears of our workers. Well, I think got enough time to make the decision for this bill here. But then that's going to be it for this part. So we have the Stability Order of 1954. An investigation on the influence of the Young Swords and Red Youth organizations on the post-assassination unrest has concluded. Both organizations haven't officially organized or called for illegal actions, but several low to mid-level leaders from both have links to insightful actions that led to deaths, injuries, and instability. This allows us to ban the organizations. So we can ban the Young Swords. This pisses off the Soulists. This, I guess, improves the relations of the Soulist. The guide I'm looking at, for some reason, uses a minus sign for the Soulist opinion. It's a bit weird. Oh, well, never mind. It's because it's the Young Swords. Never mind. I forgot. The Young Swords are the right-wing dudes. So, -2 to the Soulists, +2 to the Maluminists, -1 public opinion, +2 to Blutish opinion, +1 to country unrest. We can ban the Red Youth, +2 to the Soulists, -2 to the Maluminists, -1 to public opinion, +1 to country unrest. Interestingly, the Blutish opinion does not change at all. With that one, I guess the Blutish only really have a problem with the Young Swords. We can ban both. We get an economic development -1. That's not great. We get a -2 to Democratic. Well, that's not great either. A -2 to Soulist, -2 to Maluminists, -2 to public opinion, +1 to the Blutish opinion, and +1 to country unrest. Or we can just choose to not ban anybody, which gives us a +1 to Democratic. Reading from the guide. Again, I'm not really using this to actually make any decisions. It's just mostly so that I can kind of mention impacts. Though you would expect that banning neither would increase the unrest and doing the opposite would decrease it, any sort of ban actually makes it go up. If you're looking to be a Democrat, don't take action. Banning both organizations will upset everyone. The only benefit of banning both parties is a small rise in Blutish support. If you want to pass an authoritarian/dictator constitution with famous racist Casaro, Kiber, and the National Front without being racist yourself, don't ban the Red Youth initially, but agree to it when Casaro asks for it in negotiations. You'll then get the NFP's support even if you veto all of their anti-blood bills. Yeah, at the end of the day, I don't really have a reason necessarily to ban either organization, and I definitely don't want to ban both because that's just the worst option at the end of the day, considering it pisses everybody off except for a small boost in opinion for the Blutish regions, but we also get a decreased economic development. That's not great, because guess what we kind of need? Economic development. Who'd have thunk it, right? So this is very much a unless you're planning to play, specifically a authoritarian or a communist president, I want to say generally it's probably not in your best interest to ban either organization, and definitely not to ban both. So we're not going to ban anybody. Okay, so that is going to be it for this part. I will see you all next time, where we will be evidently making the decision regarding the Gruni Regeneration and Ecological Economic Nurturing Act, aka the Green Act, as well as finalizing the drafted constitutional changes. But those are going to wait till next time. Until then, goodbye and farewell.